Hello, good morning, parents and guardians. I trust you are doing fine. As the family, your work, and the kids. My prayer for every one of us is that God will continue to sustain us on every side by the special grace of God. By the grace of God, we'll be looking at the first series for this break, and the topic is the mystery of sowing and reaping. I repeat, the mystery of sowing and reaping. Because of our time, let's quickly look at these three key words. Number one, mystery. Number two, sowing. And number three, reaping. When we talk about mystery, we're talking about something that is still sealed, a sealed revelation. Something that is not so clear, something that is not lucid at all. In fact, it is in the jurisdiction of God to keep, to conceal mysteries. And only those who becomes the friends of God, only those who identifies with God are in a way privileged to delve into the mysteries, into the jurisdiction of God rather, to unravel the mysteries of God. And so when we talk about mystery, we're talking about something that is not clearly known or understood. Number two, we have the keyword sowing. When we talk about sowing, we're talking about planting. We're talking about cultivating. We're talking about instilling something, giving out something with an expectation. And then we'll talk about reaping. We're talking about reward, returns, dividend, like the fruits of whatsoever that had been sown. Very, very important. And so as we progress, we want to look at the relationship between sowing and reaping. But before that, we must understand that the concept of sowing and reaping is a clear or typical example of what is referred to as retribution, so that whatever is sown is what will be reaped. Now, when we talk about the relationship between sowing and reaping, we want to use the farmer as a case study. Now, the farmer, possesses a farm, then he cultivates the soil, and then he plants the seeds, and at the end of the day, he goes through several series of labor, checking up on the seeds, taming the seeds, watering the seeds, weeding the soil, or the farm, and then eventually doing everything possible to ensure that the seed survives. And at the end of the day, what happens? The farmer eventually reaps. What does it mean to harvest? He eventually harvests whatever that has been planted. Now we must understand that the concept of reaping must be clearly understood. A lot of people think that when we talk about reaping, it just has to do with something good. I will reap the fruit of my labor. Reaping is so good. No, it is not everything that is reaped that is good. We must understand, and that's why I clearly identify the word reap as reward. Every action presents reward. Every action presents. There's a reward that every of our action will present to us at the end of the day. And these actions that we live out, these actions that we put forth, are eventually what will determine the reward that will come forth. So we must understand that, so that it is not everything that is reaped that is good. In other words, the actions of the farmer, according to our case study, towards the farming activity will eventually determine the reward the farmer will get at the end of the day, whether it will be sweet or whether it will be bitter, whether it will be lean or whether it will be bountiful, whether it will be scanty or whether it will be in abundance. We must understand that. And so as we look at this teaching this morning, the mystery of sowing and reaping, I want to pose a question before us. What are you sowing? What are you reaping? What are you sowing? What are you going to reap? What are you sowing? What eventually will become what you will reap. We must be very, very careful. There are people who say it doesn't matter and they live their lives the way they like. They do not understand that every action we live out will determine what will come forth at the end of the day. Think about it. There is no night without morning. there is no morning without night. And we must understand that everything that God has made and created, they work in harmony, they work in pari passu, they work in concord. And we must understand that if we must live life to the fullest, and then if our lives must eventually please God at the end of the day, we must not take with a hand of levity the principles of retribution, the principles of sowing and reaping. You know, there are people who borrow money from people. They say, please borrow me this amount of money, I need this for that, I need that for this, and at the end of the day they don't pay. And when you try to call them, they say, is it because of this little thing you are insulting me? Oh, they soon forgot how they were running, begging and kneeling and crying and weeping and giving all kinds of stories. You know, there are people who bring in maids to their families, to their homes, and then they treat these maids as if they are slaves, and then what they get for their children they don't get for those maids. And they say, after all, she's a maid, and after all, I just brought her to help me, and she is not my child. You soon forget that every of your action eventually will determine what fruit will come out of your life. We must be very careful. You know, time will fail me to list out lots of seeds people sow on daily basis. You know, what about those who say it doesn't matter, and they insult their elders, and sometimes they even let their children insult other elders, and they say after all they are children, and it doesn't matter whether it's a seed, it will germinate, it will grow, and then tomorrow those children will thank God, they will beat you black and blue. We must understand, we must understand that whatsoever we put out there will eventually germinate and bring forth fruit. What are you sowing, good or evil? We're looking at this lesson or teaching under 3 points. Number 1, the mandate to sow. The mandate to sow. Number 2, we're looking at the burden of a sower. The burden of a sower. And number 3, we're looking at the indispensable baskets of fruits. The indispensable baskets of fruits. So as we look at the first point now, the mandate to sow. The mandate to sow, we must understand that God has called every one of us. God has created and presented every one of us here on earth, and He has given us the mandate to sow. Just like the farmer has been mandated to sow crops, to sow plants, and then that farmer cannot just possess that farm and then allow the farm to become redundant and say, I'm a farmer, and then there's nothing he's doing to sow. No wonder we see the farmers, they are thirsty, they are hungry to sow. Is their mandate, is their call. Then when we juxtapose that to us as humans, as individuals, we discover that God has created us and He has given us the obligation to go out there and to sow. What are we sowing? Number 1, He has given us the opportunity to be fruitful and multiply. We sow children, and then they come forth to life. He has given us the opportunity to raise them. But even at that, before we talk about sowing children, bringing forth children into life, have you wondered about what you have sown about yourself, what you have sown about your lifestyle, what you have sown about your academics, what you have sown about your career, what you have sown about your spiritual life, what you have sown about your personal decisions in life, your actions and attitudes towards humanity? That's what we're talking about. And so every human being has been given the opportunity to choose between good or evil, and what we choose is what we eventually live out. There's no pretense about it. If you like, pretend. If you like, cover it for too long. It will not last for too long. It will be exposed, it will be brought to limelight. And so number 1, the mandate to sow is the mandate, the right, the privilege to live the life we choose. That is it. Very important. I'm still going to come back to the fact that we have to sow children and give birth to children and raise these children. But the mandate to live a life, what choice have you made in life? As a man, as a woman, what choice have you made? What decision have you made? How are you living your life? What is your life about? We must ask ourselves these solemn questions. And so we're told that it begins with our individual thoughts and actions towards life, towards men. We must understand, how is your life before God? And how is your life in the secret? How is your life in the open? How is your life before men? These are the things we are talking about. I told someone something sometime. I said, we are not living our lives for the visible. We are living our lives for the invisible, because that is paramount. God is our priority. God sees all things, whether we hide, whether we come out to the light. He sees. We're living our lives for Him, number one. Then we are living our lives before men. As children are born, we're told that they possess the process of sowing, rather, continues in their life. As we give birth to children, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, boys, as we give birth to these children, we discover that the process of sowing continues in a different form. Remember, I said, apart from the fact that you sow into your life the attitudes, the virtues, the values, you are also to sow into these children, as God gives them to you, the values that will help them to live life. Unfortunately, some parents, instead of sowing virtues, they are sowing vices. Instead of sowing values, they are sowing an attitude, a lifestyle that contradicts the plan, the purpose, and the pattern of God. And we're told that no one can do the sowing for you. No matter how other people help you, no matter how they encourage you, no matter how they tame your children, no matter how they talk to your children, you bring them to a school, you take them here, you take them to the village, you take them to your uncle overseas, you take them to your auntie somewhere in Lagos, and then they say, oh, I lived with my mother's brother, I lived with my uncle there, I lived with my auntie over there. They cannot do it like you. You are the seed sower. You are to instill something in that child. You are to instill something in those children. You are to plant, you are to sow, you are to cultivate. And that's why when we fail to do the right, we end up sowing vices or sowing nothing. One who sows nothing will eventually reap nothing. It's a call to service. We must understand that. Number two, the burden of a sower. The burden of a sower. I told you I'm not going to take your time. Now, the burden of a sower. We're told that, just like I have said, no one can sow for you. No one can decide what you sow. No one can decide when you will sow. No one can decide for you where and how to sow. You must be very, very, very careful. It is very important. And so, in the same vein, what eventually comes out of the process you go through sowing is borne by you alone, whether it is good or bad. We must understand that. Now, let's look at some of the burdens of a sower. Let's look at the farmer again as a case study. The farmer has to endure. He has to be patient. He has to watch. He has to weed. He has to. Sometimes those crops, will be eaten up by, pests, and then birds will come, eat up those seeds, and at the end of the day, sometimes maybe rodents, coming into the farm and then eating up those what's it called now, crops. And then he starts all over. There are challenges along the way. And sometimes it's not all rosy. It's not all rosy. In the same vein, in our families, raising children it's not rosy. It's not easy. Number one, as we raise them, we have to teach them. As we teach them, you discover that we go through different stages of challenges while raising and teaching them. And then as we continue in that process, we discover that there's this fear, of failure. Am I failing? Am I not failing? Am I doing the right? And as we go on now, we discover that there are sometimes there may be temptation for us to compromise, bend the rules so that we can please the children, make them happy, and at the same time, lapses eventually comes in. And then sometimes there's this carnal comparison. This Shehu is better than Tolu, and then Tolu is more obedient than Shehu. And then there's this preference between mom and dad. Mom loves Payo, and then dad loves Chike, and the parents share the children amongst themselves, and those children say, my mother hates me, but I thank God my father. And there are challenges as we go on and on. These are the reasons why we must understand that, number one, we must be available for our children, because whatever we sow is what we are going to reap. must be available. Sometimes I hear parents say, I'm too busy, work will not allow me to rest, I'm just running here and there. Sometimes I travel around the clock, and when I come back home, these children, they are sleeping. Sometimes I don't even get to see them in 2 months, and I'm just laboring now because it is my time, and who am I laboring for? Is it not for these children? I'm just running around. And I ask them this simple question: if you are busy running around and jumping, claiming you are running and jumping for these children, and yet you do not have the time to check up the people you are jumping around for, then you are jumping in vain. You are running around for nothing. Know it and know wisdom. We must be very, very careful. No one can do it for you. No maid can do it for you. No teacher can do it for you. You have to sow yourself so you can reap unto yourself. I pray God will give us grace and understanding in Jesus' name. Now, how do you raise your children? What pattern, what methodology, what principle do you have? What do you teach them? Do you follow them up? What are the challenges you discover along the line? Do you keep those challenges? A child who was not stealing eventually begins to steal. Then you say, who am I going to tell this now? I can't tell anybody. I can't tell anybody. A child who doesn't, insult you before, now begins to talk back at you. Say, I can't tell Mr. Victor this one now. They will just kill this child for me. Let me continue to bear it and manage it until I die. And then, sometimes you discover that, even though you are afraid, you say, well, I prefer to be afraid than to expose my children to the public. What will people say about them? What if they become good and repent tomorrow? Are they not going to make jest of them? Well, that's your seed. You can sow it the way you like. And then, how do you compare your children? And you say this and that, and you tell them to their face, the one who is first child, and you are telling the last child, fourth born, that that's why I just like you, because you have sense more than your elder sister. That's why I just love you, because you are so wise, your elder sister is foolish, and yet you expect the fruits, bountiful harvest from that girl, the first child. It's not possible. It's not possible. You have destroyed that child yourself. We must repent and change from all those, and understand that what we sow is what we reap. Are you the type that prefer one to the other? And you say, don't come close to me, go to your father. Don't come close to me, go to your mother, like child. No, we do not do that. The children belongs to us. We must raise them, we must tame them. And then we must understand that there are lapses we must not allow. There are times the children will challenge you to bend. They say, sow the seed anyhow and perish. Sow the seed anyhow. It doesn't matter what comes out of it. Well, they don't understand that it will be on you. You mustn't listen to them. Say, this is too much. Allow us, give us freedom. And then you say, all right, well, I'm going to bend the rules now. I'm going to compromise now. I'm going to allow you to have a phone, and you can press it the way you like. After all, your mates are using phone at age 14. Don't mind that man. Don't mind that school. Don't mind those people. Use the phone and die. Let's bend the rules here. Well, that's your seed. Like I said, you can sow it the way you like. The mystery will be unraveled at the end of the journey. Unfortunately, it is not seen, it is not known in the way, but at the end, it will come forth as light. And then finally now, the indispensable basket of fruits. The indispensable baskets of fruits. Like I said, what you will reap out of it will eventually come forth. It will come forth. There's no two about it. It will come forth. We're told that every beginning is programmed to having an end. There must be an end to every beginning. Every beginning possesses an end, and whether we like it or not, that end will come. What end have you programmed for your children? What end have you programmed for yourself? What end have you programmed for your generation? What end have you programmed for your name? We must check up and do things right. We're told once again that what you sow is eventually what you reap. It's when you do right, you will get something right. When you do wrong, definitely get something wrong. Don't allow anything. Don't allow your wealth. Don't allow your name. Don't allow your fame. Don't allow your certificates to deceive you. Number one, respectful and perfect example. When you sow right in the lives of your children, they become respectful, they become a perfect example to the society. Everyone wants their children to be like them, everyone talks about them, and by the grace of God, the Lord will make our children like that in Jesus. And number two, loss of regard, and they eventually become vagabonds. When you sow wrongly, the children definitely will not respect you. The result will be terrible, and you end up raising street urchins. It will not be your portion. Number two, preservation and sustenance of godly virtues. You see, when they are raised right and the seed is sown right, definitely the godly virtues, the moral standards will be preserved and sustained. When the children travel to Canada, travel to Germany, you are not afraid, you are not calling, you are not having sleepless nights. You are just saying, oh, I just thank God because the seed is sown. Thank God because the fruits will come for anywhere. Then if on the other hand you didn't do right, there will be pretense, there will be hypocrisy, and there will be boundless vices. No wonder they go out, they steal. No wonder they go out, they tell lies. No wonder they go out, they fight. No wonder they go out, they commit all kinds of immoral activities, immorality, fornication, lesbianism, homosexualism. And then number three, beautiful end. The end will always be beautiful. Can't you imagine? Can't you just imagine for a while that the child has graduated, and then the child has eventually gotten a good job, and now the child is getting married, and then you are inviting people, and people are coming, and they are seeing the value, they are seeing the splendor, the glory of God. Do you want the other hand, the people where there will be woeful end, unwanted pregnancy in secondary school, God forbid, unwanted pregnancy in the university, God forbid, rustication from the university, all kinds of immoral behaviors? When we talk about parents not allowing their children to barb all kinds of hairstyle, they say, does it concern you? It doesn't matter, because the other one doesn't fit my child. I want my child to be like a Rastafarian. I want my child to be like the people of the world and the musicians and footballers. Can't you see? Can't you hear? And then eventually that child will grow up, he will do what? Will you be able to stop it? I wonder. And then you see, at the end of the day, these are the people who end up staying with their parents for long. 40 years they are there, 50 years they are there, because they have failed and their lives have become a bunch of failures. I pray it will not happen to you. Finally, now there will be transfer of virtues. When they do right, when you sow right, the virtues they have will be transferred to their siblings. You have peace of mind. I've told us before in one of our series that when you train the first will train the second. There's no two about it. But if on the other hand they didn't do well, they didn't sow well, there'll be troubles and there'll be transfer of vices. The house, the family, the name, the lineage will be on fire. Finally, as an individual, what are you sowing for yourself? Be careful of what you do. Cheat people, deceive people, commit immorality, adultery, sleep with people's wives, sleep with people's husbands. They will sleep with your children as well. They will ruin their lives. We must be careful. You do not understand. What we sow is what we will reap. We cannot give to these children what we don't have. We cannot give to the society what we don't have. Seek right, seek the truth, do well, uphold moral standards, and by the grace of God, we must understand it is not just about now. It's not about the day. At the end of the journey, when we get to the end of the road, the light, the truth will come forth. Thank you very much, and I pray that God will give you the grace to ponder, to cogitate, to go through this teaching, and then by the grace of God, numerous and great blessings and testimonies will emerge in Jesus' name. Thank you very much. God bless you.